This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we are discussing about the trigger. We'll continue uh, we'll continue the scenarios, some more scenarios with the trigger. Okay. Okay. Right. So there was a scenario we discussed in the last session to restrict user, delete the contact if the contact belongs to an account. Okay. So before the record got deleted, we are going to check within the trigger. We are going to check in the trigger whether the contact has an account. We are going to check within the trigger and display the error message to the user if the contact comes under any account in the database. Okay, so that's what we are trying to achieve. So which contact you are going to throw, for which contact record you are going to throw an error message? The contact that user is trying to delete. The contact record that user is trying to delete, we're going to throw error message. Am I right? So the event is going to be before delete, the object is going to be contact, and we need to refer trigger.old or trigger.old map, right? The reason, we are dealing with existing record, we are dealing with old versions of the record. Okay, this is not the trigger to check the modified value. This is not the trigger to check the new record, going to the database. We are going to work on the existing record, old version. When you say old version, it's going to be trigger.old or old map. Got me? So if you refer trigger.new in this trigger, you will not find any value in the trigger.new. The trigger.new is going to be null in this trigger. Which trigger? In before delete trigger, the trigger.new new map will not have any value. Okay, so the context variable will have value with respect to the event. Okay, so you may get a questions in interview, right? Where trigger.old and trigger.old map, when this context variable will have value. This will have value when a user perform any DML operations on existing record, the old versions. Got me? So delete operations, update operations, you will find a record in this record value in this list variable, old list of old versions of S object record, right? So now we need to follow certain steps. Okay, so first thing, I'm going to check whether a contact has an account or not. So we know like a relationship field account ID. So select ID, uh, you know, select ID from contact where account ID equal to not equal to null, am I right? So that I can get only the contact which comes under some account, and not for all the contact I'm going to check, only for the contact, okay, what user is trying to delete. So where I can get those record where the user is performed trying to initiated the delete operation, I can find it in trigger.old. You can directly refer this list, that will refer the ID in this list, or else you just you can take only the ID also. How to get only the IDs here? How to get only the IDs here? Either you can iterate this, either I can iterate this and get only the IDs from this, right? Set of I can do like this, add c.id. I can get the ID like this, but this approach takes you have to loop it, you have to loop and take the records and add it to the set. Okay, instead I'm going to do it in other form. Listen here, trigger dot old map. So what is this actually? This is going to be a map of ID comma contact, right? Because what is object under contact object under context, it's going to be contact object. So from here I can get a key set will give all the IDs of the contact under context, right? ID con ID is equal to conmap dot key set, right? So now this con IDs I can refer here. Okay, there are different approach, right? So instead you store and you can also directly go with trigger dot old map dot key set, right? So either go like this, or else I can directly store into this. Dot key set. Makes sense to all of you? So this way you will do it, okay? Or else I can directly refer this variable here. I can directly refer this variable here, right? There are multiple approach we have, okay? But what I told earlier, the simplest form, trigger dot old. The old is going to have a ID as well. The old is going to have ID as well, right? So I can go like in this format as well. We will follow this, right? So what you are going to get here out of this, I'm going to get list of, am I right? List of contact con list. I get like this. Okay. What is the next step? I need to throw error message only for each individual record. I need to throw error message, right? Because say for example, if you are performing non-atomic operations using data loader, I have some a bulk volume of contacts I'm trying to delete. I have in my CSV file all the IDs of the contact. So what field you will have in your CSV file to delete a particular object record? Only the ID field, a matching field, right? So you'll have all the ID, in a column, you have all the record IDs and you're trying to delete. And okay, as suppose I'm trying to delete some 100 contacts, right? 100 contacts. Among them, the 50 contacts as account. Okay, the 50 contacts as parent. So only those 50 contacts needs to be rejected with error message. Okay, only those 50 contacts needs to be rejected into the error file with error message. If if bulk delete operation is performed using tools, if only one contact record is deleted, user trying to delete in the arc, only that particular record I need to show the error message. So that's a requirement, right? Either it's one record or more than one record. Both the cases, I need to check the contact whether it has an account and throw the error message. So that's the objective of this trigger before the record got deleted. Okay, in that scenarios, I know I got all the contacts among the user deleted. So when you run this trigger, what will happen? I said only 50 contacts as account. Only those 50 contacts will be captured here. Am I right? Only those 50 contacts will be captured here. But next step, I need to throw the error message for individual record. For individual record, right? So what we are going to do, okay, what we are going to do uh, for on list, okay, contact C C dot add error is the method. Add error is the method where, okay, what you can use it in your within the trigger. Okay, so let's try this simple solution. The console. So add error is a method that you can use within your trigger context. This method cannot be used any other context not under the trigger. Okay, it can only be used within the trigger for the instance of the record. For any one instance of the record, you can use within the trigger add error method. So whatever message you given here can be displayed in the UI as well as can be captured in the error file if non-atomic operation is performed. Okay, right. Okay, we missed something here. Check that. Hold. So next we need to test this, right? Right. The validations, custom validation, text takeoffs. Okay, so it's basically no. This is was does not allow errors. Okay, the S object row does not allow error. Okay. Okay. The thing is, yeah, the important point here is we cannot throw error message on a local context, local variables. So list of contact, con list is a variable declared within the trigger, which is not your trigger context variable. Okay. See where I can throw the error message. You can throw the error message on the trigger record, trigger dot old map, trigger dot new, trigger dot old. Only the record in this only instance of the trigger dot list of S object records only I can throw error message. I cannot throw error message on S object record. So this is basically S object row. What is S object row? Basically, I get the record from the database and store into local variable. So here I cannot throw error message. I can only throw error message on the trigger context variable. 1 minute. Let me explain the paintbrush. Okay, so I have two types of scenario here. Listen. So when I do this, then this become a local variable, right? This become local variable. So I cannot use a add error method on the local variable. I cannot use this, which is not allowed. The add error method, okay, cannot be used against your local variable. The add error method cannot be used against your local variable. So instead, which is allowed, right? So this is not allowed. So this is not allowed because we are using a local variable, and for that instance, we are trying to add the error, which is not acceptable. Okay. But if I do like this, contact trigger dot old c dot add error, this is allowed. This is allowed, right? Because I'm triggering an error. I'm adding the error against a trigger context variable. If this is stored into another variable, also is fine. List of contact. Okay, a con list equal to trigger dot old. Now here I'm using con list. So this is allowed because this again referring the same only. Con list is referring the trigger dot old only. But here the con list is freshly, right, entirely created from the SOQL database. Okay, there is no relationship with your trigger dot old and the con list, right? Because we just use this in the where condition and get every instances from the database, and we are trying to throw the error message, which is not acceptable. But this is acceptable because we are trying to add error message here. We are adding error message against the instance of the trigger dot old collection. So this part is allowed. So we have to modify our logic. Okay, to throw the error message against trigger dot context variable, trigger dot new or trigger dot old. Only to the trigger instance I can throw the error message. We will follow this. So you need to modify this logic. Okay, right. How we are going to modify this logic? So I got all the records. Okay, where it has some account. So now I'm going to do this in other form. Listen here. So my objective is to check if check if the ID of con list or ID of the the contacts that are under deletion is found in con list, then throw error message. So this is what we are trying to do now. Okay, I'm going to get all the contacts which are under deletion. It means I said, like, if 100 contacts are user trying to delete, okay, I'm going to get ID of the contact, ID of all the contacts from here, okay, from here, and then trying to match with this contact. If it is both are matching, then throw error message. So that way you can do, or else you get all the IDs from this con list. Okay, instead of going through all the contacts, get all the IDs from this con list, and again, okay, get all the IDs from this context, and then check whether that ID is there in this trigger.old. Okay, and then if ID is matching, then throw the error message. Right? See, there is a best approach we can resolve this. Instead of going in the list, I'm going to create a map. And type. So how do you create a map? People remember the constructor method. So what this will do? This will create a map of ID as a key, contact ID as a key, and a value as a contact record. Okay, right, this is what I got from here. Okay, from here I'm going to check, I'm going to get the ID alone. Set I got all the IDs now. Okay, all the IDs which has a account, all the contact which has account. Okay, then what I'm going to do, I'm going to iterate this on IDs. Can you follow this? So what next I'm going to do, I'm going to check whether this ID is there in the context variable, because I can only throw the error message against the trigger instance. I cannot throw the error message on the local list variable. The reason we change this logic to iterate this, get each and individual ID from these con IDs and check in the trigger.map. So we are going to check. The best approach is using trigger.old map only in this case, right? Because I'm going to check the ID whether it's there in the collection or not. So how will you check whether its ID is there in the collection or not? A map. How will you check the ID is there in the map or not? Anyone? How to check the ID is there in the map or not?
Contains.
Trigger.old contains key CID. So if it is there, then we are going to throw the error message. So error message we are going to throw against each and individual record in this map. Each and individual record, right? We need to throw the error message. Okay, I got a key. Then if the key is found, then against that instance we are going to throw the error message. Okay, what is the next step? When the key is found, then we need to get a record from this trigger collection. Then I can add the error message, because you can only add error message against one instance of the record. Only one, against one record you can throw error message, not against all the collection. Okay, so I got the key. Okay, reason we are using the map here. Okay, instead of going with the trigger.old, why are using map? Because it provides you an best easy approach to locate the key. Based on the key, right? Based on the key, I can get the record. So this is going to return one contact record. What are the contact which has account? Then here I'm going to add the error message. You'll follow this. So either you can store into one contact variable and throw error message, or else directly you just add the error. That's it. Okay, this should work because we are throw the error message on trigger instances. Earlier we tried with object S object records, okay, which is not acceptable. You need to throw error message against trigger variable.
Sir,
Okay, right.
last
So
line.
the hmm,
Trigger.oldmap.get
hold on.
CID. Why we are using get CID, sir? Here directly we can add error
Wait,
message
wait
to
one
that.
minute. That's what we are trying to do. Okay. So why we are using get? Because we need to throw error message for each and individual record. Okay. If you're trying to delete in the UI, it's going to be one record. If it is through tools, data loader, right, or any third-party system trying to delete bulk volume of data, in that case, for individual record, I should throw the error message. So for that, I need to get that record, right? I need to get that record. So how will you get that record? From the map, get method, I can use based on a key, I can get one instance, then I can throw the error message. That's what they are doing, right? Here. We cannot, then how will you throw the error message against the trigger variable? There is no way. So get the record and add the error.
Sir, where we are comparing the ID and the values, that is the line, right? Old map dot get CID.
This is a map. From the
Yeah.
map, how will you get a value? Value is
Okay.
nothing but a record. Yes. So con map dot get, you pass ID, it going to return a record. So that's what you're storing the record, and against that instance, we can add the error.
Okay.
Clear, all of you? It's just a map, right? That's what I'm telling to you all. Work on the
Is
collection.
it
It's a map we are dealing with. Yeah.
is it in the select
Who is this?
conditions trigger dot world map
Session.
or trigger dot world?
Here, old and old map both will have ID. Ishan. Both will have ID. That's a common thing. Old and old map both will have ID because we are working on the old versions, right? The existing record. So old map, old and old map both will have ID. So it's okay. You can use anything here.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So now this is a trigger on the contact object. But what is the best practice we have discussed? It should be okay. The logic will move to the a class. A logic will move to one common class. Okay. So let's create a class which is going to handle all the logic of the trigger. Okay. So I need here Okay, I need these two variables. So this is going to be old list, and wherever I'm using old map, I'm going to use old con map. We'll follow this. This is a class, right? So wherever I'm using this one, I'm going to use it. Okay, so old con map contains key. Okay, there is an unexpected token. Here it is. Yeah. Right. Now this is a class we're going to call. While calling this method, we need to pass respective a context variable here. That's it. So we're not going to have the logic here. We're going to have this call statement. So what I need to pass here? I need to pass trigger dot old comma trigger dot old map. So the logic is here and call statement is here. You follow this? So right, that contact belongs to an account. We're trying to delete. Hopefully I get a message here. Right? This is how the message is. The system thrown message will be the first validation error encountered. The message, whatever you given in the add error message, will display here. If the contact is deleted through your tools, multiple records, more than one record, then you'll get error message only for the contact. Okay, which as account, which error message, whatever you used here, add error. Okay, you listen here. The context is continued, right? So we got the old map context variable referred here. We are not storing into any. Okay, we have earlier we had a different approach where we pull the records from the database and store into local variable. So against the local variable, the add error method cannot be added, cannot be performed. So against the trigger variables, we perform this method. Okay, so that error can be displayed in the UI or else captured in the error file.
Okay, sir.
So okay, we'll take quick scenario for uh, an update. Okay, for update scenario. The scenario here is Vijay, that's okay. That's a kind of, see, if you see everything, then you lose the no, you will not get the time for to cover the some important scenarios. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. See, when you we already seen, right, when you delete a record in data loader, what happens? The record is rejected. A custom validation error will be captured in a file. Okay, can you take this as an just an iteration kind of exercise? You can, right? You just have to capture the ID in this CSV file. That's it. You follow this. You just have to capture the ID in the CSV file. If individual every scenarios you know you want to be in a demo, then you lose the time for an important scenario to practice. Okay, you need to capture the IDs in a CSV file and then try to delete with the delete operation. Okay, we'll save our time. That's what I'm just skipping that part. Okay, I'm just trying to concentrate. Yeah, thanks for understanding. Yeah, it's just a usual thing. Okay, by this time when you give scenario, people has to demonstrate scenario yourself. Okay, right now, yeah, this is my requirement. When the stage is modified, when the stage field is modified from closed one to closed last, closed one to closed last, then I'm going to update the the next step field with some message. Update next step field opportunity as okay, escalate to manager. It means okay, the sometimes the opportunity goes from one to close last due to some reason. Okay, the customer changed the decision. It happens. Okay, when that is the case, then okay, we need to escalate to manager. You can also enhance it escalate in the sense there is a next step field in the opportunity object. Okay, where we are trying to we are going to update that field with some text here. When the stage is modified from closed one to closed last, then we are doing this. Okay, you can also enhance this application sending email to the managers, a group of people, right? Or else you can okay, you can enhance the application to different ways. Okay, you can submit the approval process also. We can have the approval process, escalation approval process. Whenever the stages goes to last, then we can submit the approval process. I'll give some scenarios how to submit the approval process. Then you can enhance this application to that scenario as well. Okay, now we take this scenario to understand, because okay, action can be anything. But the key part here is how to check this. Okay, how to check this. So what is the key important point here? We are going to check what is the old value, what is the new value. We're going to check whether the old value is closed one. Okay, whether the old value is closed one and the new value is closed last. So that we have to check. You follow this? Right, see here, I'm going to have a trigger. We know like we are going to have the logic inside a class. So this is a class. I'm going to have a method. So here what we are going to perform the logic. Let's go to class. Okay, so So this is a trigger we are going to call from, this is a method we are going, class we are going to call from the trigger. Okay, right. Right. The important thing here is we are going to deal with the object opportunity. Okay, and event, right? Event is going to be, we are going to update the field, right? We are going to update the field. So what we are going to use after update, okay? Because once a value is modified, then you are going to okay, update the field, and then the context variable. What are the context we are going to use? We are going to compare the old versions of the record. We are going to compare the old versions, right? So when you are comparing the old versions, it's going to be a trigger dot old or old map. Okay, where the on which record we are going to perform the DML operation? Existing record. When you say existing record, it's the old versions of a subject record. Okay, right. So when it's the old versions, I can use a context variable trigger dot old map or old map or old. And how will you come to know the modified value? We are also going to compare the modified value, right? The old records we can get from trigger.old map. How can you get the modified value? It's again the old version only, but old record is modified, then it goes to the trigger dot new or new map. We'll follow this. The old value will be here, and the new modified value will be here. So trigger.old map and trigger.new map will have value in the after update. So after update, you'll find the value in the new map. Before update, you can find value in this old map. You got it? You got the context here? So the old map is to get the old values. It means the record on which the DML is performed. To get the old values, I can refer the old map in this context, okay, in the update event, and I can also get the modified value in the new map. Got me? The new record, the new value, what user is what user is trying to, what user is modified, that value I can refer in the new map, right? So these two context variable we are using here, we are going to use here. Okay, so that's the value I'm going to pass from the trigger. Then I should be able to receive that value here. So how we are going to receive that value? As a map, right? Comma opportunity. So again, I'm going to receive the new map. That's it. Right, it's done now. Right, what next we are going to do? We need to follow a certain step, right? We need to follow a certain step. First thing, okay, let's derive the approach here. What are we going to do here? The first step, okay, we are going to update only the record which goes from closed one to closed last, not for every record. Okay, it's going to be similar to the logic we followed to identify the record. Okay, only the contact which has account. Okay, so to add the error message, we do like this, right? Similarly here, we are going to update only the field record field where the stage goes from closed one to closed last, right? Okay, so whenever you update a record, the record already goes to the database. The record already into the database, right? When the record you are going to modify, which is committed to the database, then you have to query the record. By using SOQL, you can query the record, then you update it. So which record you are going to query? The record whose stage goes from close one to close last. So only those records we are going to query it, right? See, the final step, update. The next step for the record whose stage is moved from close one to last. So only those records you are going to update. Okay. To do this, we have to query using SOQL. We have to query the database, query the object using SOQL for the record. For this record only, you are going to query. Then we are going to update using DML. Am I right? So which field you are going to update? Next step. So this is a step you are going to do. So before you perform the last step, okay, this is the last step we are talking about. Before you perform the last step, I need all the IDs. I need all the IDs whose value is changed from one to last, right? So before, okay, the step before this, we have to get all the IDs, so that ID I can use in the SOQL query, right? So in this case, we need to compare, right? I need to compare the old stage and the new stage. I need to compare. Am I right? So compare the old stage and new stage, right? Where I can get the old stage, I can get from the old map. I can get from the old map, right? So see here how I'm going to do this. Okay, you need to iterate for all the records, okay, where the DML is performed. I need to iterate all the records where the DML is performed. Okay, then we are going to compare the value. We are going to compare the record stage field, right? So how will you get the first record from the old map? How will you get the record from the old map? Based on the ID. Based on the ID, if I use get method, I can get the record. From the record, I can compare the stage field. Am I right? Trigger dot old map dot get. You pass the ID here, then you get the record. Then stage equal to, you'll follow this. Closed one, this is the old one. If this is matching, okay, and this is matching, and then what about the new stage? The new stage should be closed last. If this two condition is matched, right? If this two condition is matched, so what are you going to collect here? I'm going to collect all the IDs. Collect all the IDs. If you got all the IDs, then I get only the IDs whose stage was closed one, now it is closed last. Then for that IDs, I get all the records, then update the field. It makes sense to all of you? That's what you're going to do now. Okay. See, first derive the logic, then you can yep.
How we can get two status in the same step, closed on and closed loss? Either one will be available, right? At the same time.
No. Just hold on. Put mute, I'll explain. Right. This is how the record in my object, and right. User is trying to perform an update operation here. Okay, so is a record where the user is trying to modify. Okay, update this to a close last. So which record user is trying to modify? The first opt1, right? So opt1 record user is trying to modify from close one to close last. They updated, then the record goes to close last. So the old value is a closed one, the new value is close last. Okay, right. Now what is the value the trigger.old is going to have? The trigger.old is going to have a opt1 close last. Okay, the trigger.old will have a opt1. Okay, and it also have ID as well, right? Suppose the ID of the record is okay, I forgot to put the ID here. Suppose ID of the record is O1 and the second record is O2, O3, O4, like this. So okay, the trigger.old will have a ID and the record all together like this, O1, right? Like this is going to have. What trigger.old map is going to have? O1 as a key, okay, and this record as a value. So that is your map, right? So the map is going to have the old value only. Before you modified, what is the value there in the database? That will be there. What about trigger.new map? The trigger.new map is again going to have, okay, is going to have O1 and value O1 opt1, right? The important thing here is it's going to have a right. There is a typo I made, ma. Yes, there is a typo I made. Yes, you're right. Closed one. Closed one. Right. Right. Now you got a clarity. See here. In the after update event, I can have value in old map as well as new map. Both will have value. The old map is going to have the record, okay, the value which is there in the record before you modify it. That's what old map says, right? Old versions of the S object record where the DML is performed, the old version you can get. What about the new version? It means the modified value that you can get in the new map. But in both the cases, what is the matching field actually? The ID field is going to be same. In all the three cases, the ID field is going to be same, right? The ID field is going to be same. Only the modified value, okay, the record where the field where the value is modified, so those will be different between the collections, but the ID is going to be same. So in the after update event, you are going to have values in the old map as well as new map as well. Okay, we'll follow this. In the case of after insert event, for example, we are trying to delete one new record, and in the after insert event, what about trigger.old map? Both trigger.old will not have any value. If you refer a trigger.old and old map in the trigger event, okay, where the trigger ran after insert event, you will not have value here because we are dealing with the new versions of record, which means record was not there in the database earlier. The new record we are dealing with, right? Only trigger.new map will have value in the after insert. Okay, people should know the context. Okay, old map, old means old version, which is already there in the database. Okay, whatever the new record is going to insert, that can be found in the after event. That can be found in the after event. In the case of after update, the modified value of the existing record can be referred in the new map. We'll follow this. We'll proceed. Okay, right. So here we are comparing the two values. So okay, to compare each and in every record where the user is performed the DML operation, and okay, so that I can compare each and individual record here and collect the IDs. So the entire thing is going to be inside a for loop, right? Inside a for loop where we are going to iterate. We need IDs, right? For every iteration I need ID. Which ID? Whatever the record under update, whatever the record we updated, those IDs we are going to iterate, right? So here, listen here, trigger dot old dot key set. So what is going to return, ma? Is going to have all the IDs of the record under, okay, which are what record we modified. Can I go with the new map or old map? Yes, I can go with any of this because both are going to have a ID is going to be same. So I can use either old map or new map IDs, ID, OID or OPP ID. So now this OPP ID I'm going to use here. We'll follow this. That's it, right? So once this is matching, then collect all the IDs, and then you do this. So that's the approach we are going to take here. That's it. People would like to take this as an exercise and okay, perform this. Take this in exercise. I given this step. So all you have to do is, complete this step with your logic. That's all. This quite okay. Collect all the IDs, then perform SOQL and update. Okay, update. So you can find a solution tomorrow. I will upload the a solution in the notepad. Maybe in the second half. Okay, I'll upload. But you compare your answer. Just try this and let me know. So this first step, and this was step 2.
Sir, I have one quick question. Shall I ask?
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, the example just now which you shown. Yeah, suppose if that job got abandoned due to some abnormal error or something, so whatever that context variable is storing during the runtime, that will be lost, right? So again, if I reinitiate that job or process, then that previous the status will not be available, right? So that how we need to handle that scenario in real time. Can we have some more field check?
No. See, when you perform DML, the trigger will fire. That's it. Any error occurs, then you will again perform the DML again, right? So the old context, why you are worrying about the old context variable? That's not under the scope, right? So when you perform DML, then you are going to perform a logic. That's right. That's no other approach you are going to take here. When you perform DML, I'm going to compare the values and do this. Any error occurs, then the execution is stopped, right? Then you perform the DML, then you perform this. I couldn't get your questions properly, man. That's what we are doing this. What is the complexity here?
My question is
clearly.
Yeah, my question is that earlier it was own, right? Stage was own, right? So that we updated to loss. So how long that the previous that status will be stored in the old map? That is my question.
Only during execution of the trigger. When the execution of the trigger is done, when the trigger execution is complete, it's a context variable. During runtime only you can refer this value. As far as the
Yes.
trigger is run, when the trigger is completed, then it goes away. Yes.
Yeah. Again, next day I want to run the same job and I want to do the same process. So does it possible with the old record or
Yes, ma.
again?
No. You are entirely confused yourself. See,
Okay. Okay. I will
why you
ask
are
later.
worrying about the
No
yeah,
problem.
confuse yourself. No, it's not that. It's okay. See, do not take your understanding to the another level. It's just a process which runs when you perform DML. That's all. Okay. It's not your version control tool. It's not a version control process to get back your a day before record, a day before value, a last week what was the value, then five updates before what was the value. So that is not the a process we are talking about. This is not your version control process. This is the current process. When you modify it, then okay, we are trying to compare the value and okay, and perform the logic. That's it. This is not your version control process. Remember, version control process, you track the record. What was the old record yesterday? What was it? That's not the question here. Okay. Do not take your understanding to the different level. So this is for the current record when you perform DML. So what is trigger? Before or after DML, you would like to perform some logic. That's all. Okay. So in the logic, we are going to compare the old values. Old values means what? It's not your yesterday's value. It's just comparing the current a DML, right? Current record, on which record you are going to perform the DML operation. That's it, right? And so uh, there are some scenarios. I can walk through it. Instead, we give the demo so that right. There is a trigger. Okay, there is a trigger where you may perform uh, the DML on the same object where the trigger is initiated because of DML event. It means, say for example, I have a okay, just a quick scenario. I have a trigger. Right, I already have this example here as well. Okay, listen here. What you are trying to do here? There is a trigger on after update. There is a trigger on after update. Okay, and here, yeah, here what is the requirement? When when the stage is when the stage is uh, not equal to uh, all the open stages, okay, all the open stages means the stage should not be uh, equal to 1, not equal to 1 and equal to closed 1. What we are trying to do here? Okay, it's performing DML operations. Update the close date if the stage is modified to closed 1. Okay, if the opportunity record is modified, if the opportunity record is modified, once it is modified, okay, it goes to closed 1, right? So whenever the opportunity is closed 1, I would like to okay, update close date modified to closed 1. Then I would like to update the close date to be current date. Okay, that's the kind of logic we are going to perform here. When the right, when the stage is modified to closed 1, then update the close date to be a current date. Okay, listen here. So what you're doing here, this is your regular logic. You people are right, you already know this. We get all the we compare the old one. The old stage should not be closed one, the new stage should be closed one, so that we come to know, yes, the modified record stage is closed one, and earlier it was not closed, now it is closed. When it is closed, then update the date field. So here my trigger is on after update event. My trigger is an after update event. But what we are trying to do here, we are trying to update the close date in the same object, right? In the same object record, I'm going to update the close date. What will happen in this case? What will happen in this case? The opportunity is on update event. We are trying to update the same object. Then what will happen? The trigger goes in a loop. The trigger goes in a loop, right? Because once any update event is triggered, the same trigger will fire again and again. It will fire. It will goes in a loop. Is that make sense to all of you? Will you able to follow this? The same thing will you may face in this trigger as well. When you implement this trigger, you may face, because I'm trying to update the next step field here, right? So what is the event I'm going to have the trigger after update? What are you going to do in this logic? We're going to update the next step field. Then what will happen? Again, the trigger will fire and it goes in a loop. Okay, it goes in a loop. As far as the condition is matched, it always goes in a loop, right? So then, okay, so how to avoid the trigger goes in a loop? How to avoid the trigger goes in a infinite loop? I do not want to goes in an infinite loop. When the when the opportunity is updated, then I have to stop it in the same transaction. Okay, in the same transaction, I do not want to run the trigger again and again. Once a close date is modified, then I like to stop this. That's it. Once all the records where the stage goes from open to closed one, I modify the close date, then stop the trigger to run. I do not want to run it again and again. I do not want this trigger to be evaluated again and again in this same transaction, so that it will goes in a loop, right? Okay, we'll take a scenario to understand this. So I have a trigger here. The trigger is invoked in after insert event. Okay, I just move the logic, right, as usual. Move the logic in another a static method. Right. Right. It's time to take a break. Listen here, all of you. I just show this screen. Try to implement it and see what happens. Okay, just a 5 minutes break. Try to implement this and see whether the trigger goes in a loop or not. I just put a mute. In 5 to 10 minutes, you'll connect back again. Got me, all of you? Right? Just try to implement this.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we are here. Recursive trigger. Right. To understand it, the simple approach, how the recursive trigger works. Right. When the recursive scenario will happen, I have a after insert event on the account object. Right. So the trigger perform this logic. So what I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to insert an account record. So what this will do actually, an event is, the DML event is performed, again the trigger will fire. So trigger goes in a loop, right? The scenarios like you perform an update operations on the opportunity record where the trigger is written on the after update event. So again the same trigger will fire. So again fire and again it goes in a loop, which is called recursively the trigger will run. Okay. So let's quickly test scenario. I'm trying to insert an account record. I'm just trying to insert an account record and save. So you get the trigger goes in a loop. Okay, trigger goes in a loop. The maximum trigger depth is reached. The maximum trigger depth is reached after insert. The trigger goes in a loop. The trigger goes in a loop. Okay, and so it failed. It failed because it runs in a loop. The system thrown exception, DML exception. Okay, says like it cannot done that activity again and again in the same transaction. So how to avoid this, right? I need to stop the execution. I do not want to run the trigger in the same transaction more than once. I do not want to run this trigger in the same transaction. It's the same transaction is happening, right? In the same transaction, I do not want to run the same trigger again and again. So if the value needs to be shared across, okay, in the same transaction, the value needs to be shared, then we are going with a static variable, right? The static variable is going to be share the same value across multiple instances. Okay, whenever you create another trigger, it's going to be another instance, but in the same transaction. Okay, when you are having different instances, you like to share the same value across multiple instances. Then which variable will go? You will go with a static variable. So what are you going to do? We are going to declare a static variable. I declare a flag. Okay, I declare a flag. So I make it as true in the initially. So okay, I make it true in the initially. So run this logic. Okay, run this logic when the flag is true. When the flag is true, the first time it becomes true. So the logic will run, and once it is run, then I make it as false. So in the same transaction again, the class is invoked. So what will happen? This become false. Then this logic will not run. So DML will not performed. Then the trigger will not goes in a loop. We'll follow this. So how we are going to approach this? Okay. So what is our solution? We provide to stop the recursive trigger. Declare a Boolean variable and turn the flag Boolean variable and check the Boolean variable and decide whether to run this logic or not. So it won't run again, right? In the same transaction, it creates another instance. It come to the another instance again. It will check the flag. It is false. Then it will not run again. You follow this? It's clear to all of you. So right. The same thing is applicable for any type of the logic you're going to implement. In case if this goes in a loop, you need to follow the similar approach. You need to follow the similar approach. So declare a static variable and turn the static variable from one value to another value so that the trigger will not run in a loop. So how to stop the recursive trigger? What is recursive trigger? How to stop the recursive trigger? Okay, and right. So I have a scenario here. Okay, right. We'll take one more scenario to understand how I can share the record programmatically. Right? People know the sharing, right? And sharing is nothing but you'll do the sharing using manual sharing, a sharing rule, manual sharing rule, and we can also programmatically share. Programmatically, we can also share. Okay. See, we have a sharing object. For every standard objects, we have a corresponding sharing object called with the name suffix with the share text. So account as account share, contact as contact share, right? So I have a account share object. Okay, there is no record has been shared. If you'd like to share the record programmatically, if my account is in private model, that's assumption. Okay, but for every standard objects, we have a corresponding share object. For any custom object you create, the corresponding share object will be created in this name. How it is going to be created? Object name double underscore with the name share. If I create a custom object, then corresponding sharing object will be created. For standard objects, it's already there in the database with this naming convention. Okay, right? So what are the fields the share object has? If you take the account share, I have a field called account ID, the name of the name of the object with the suffix with ID. Okay, so any record you are going to share to the other user. Okay, other user. The user may be individual user or it may be a group user also, right? In the sharing rule, to whom you are going to share the record? In the sharing rule, you are going to share to the individual user or any public group also, right? So that user ID that ID of the public group or user ID you are going to pass here. This is a field you are going to pass. And which record you are going to share? That ID of the record you will pass to this field. These are all field in the field in the share object, account share object. So account share object is again an object which has all these fields. Okay, and what type of access you are going to provide? In the sharing rule, you will decide the access and whom you are going to share. All those fields we are going to give here programmatically. That's all. We are going to insert a row into this object, then automatically record will be shared. Okay. So what are the important field we are going to give value here? Excuse me. So one is a level of access, whether it's a read or write access, and the row cause a field which is going to take a static value manual, and this is going to decide what type of access you're going to provide and to whom you are going to share the access and which record you are going to share. So these fields are you're going to give value programmatically. Okay, consider like account is in private model. Okay, I like to share the record based on some condition. So that's we are going to handle in the program. That's it. When the industry is energy, when the type is customer direct, then we are going to provide to the particular user with a read access. Okay. When you do this manually, you will go for manual sharing, right? But I would like to do this programmatically. So when you do programmatically, all you are going to do is whatever the record meeting this criteria, we are going to insert a row into this object. That's all. It's like a inserting row into the object. When you are going to insert, when this criteria is met, when this criteria is met for all the records which are meeting this criteria, okay, we are going to share this, right? So when you share this, you need ID, right? You need ID of the record. When you'll get ID? Only in the after insert event. See, row cause is nothing but the reason for sharing, Vijay. Reason for sharing is going to take a static value, manual. Why we are sharing this record? It's going to take a static value. It doesn't have any much uh, importance here. Okay, just a value to know how we are how we are sharing. Manual sharing. It means it's going to have static value when you do this apex sharing also. Manual is just a text you are going to give to this field. That's it. Okay, fine. And share the record programmatically, right? There is no much to discuss here. What we are going to discuss here, just get the ID of the user, because I need the ID to pass to this value, right? And what else you need? I need ID of the record. Which record you're going to pass? Whatever the record meeting this criteria, whatever the record meeting this criteria, that pass that ID. So obviously the event is going to be after insert event only. After insert or after update, whatever the record meeting this criteria, we are going to create a row into this object, right? So this is a condition where we are checking meeting criteria. Whenever the criteria is met, we are going to collect all the records instances and add into list of share. Why are you going for list? If I include a DML directly here, okay, sometimes more than 150 record match this criteria, then what will happen? You will hit a limit exception. Limit exception it will hit, right? You cannot perform more than 150 DML. So reason we create a list of account share and okay, and create this instance and add it. Then finally, if the instance contains any record, then insert. That's it. You follow this? It's clear to all of you? We're just trying to insert a row into this object. We're trying to insert a row into this object. The object record, all the fields to be valued. ID of the record, what you're going to insert, what you're going to share, to whom you are going to share, what is the level of access, what is the row cost. Am I right? So what are the criteria is met? We'll create one instance, ID of the record. Okay. And what level? What is this actually? This is a child, right? This is a child. See, you are giving access to the parent. Then what is the access to the child record? So that's also we're giving here. Opportunity is a child to account, and whom you are going to share, and what is the reason for sharing, and get all the records in a collection, and then do one DML, insert multiple rows into the share object. That's it. Because the trigger may run for not just for one record. Trigger may run for multiple records also, bulk volume of record also.
Clear, sir.
Split all of you. Right. I said you can also submit the record for approval from the Apex also. From the Apex, I can submit the record for approval. I can manually submit, you know, right? And we can also use process builder, and I can submit the record using Apex coding also. From the programmatically, I can submit the record. Okay. For that, there is a step you need to follow. There is a step you need to follow. Basically, every approval request we create. Okay, every approval request we create. I go to create, right? I have some approval process. So what will happen whenever you create an approval process? whenever you create an approval process, in your a platform, in your login, what will happen? An approval process will take a row into some standard objects and classes, using which we can process the approval programmatically. We can process approval request programmatically. Okay. Say for example, I have an approval on a custom object project. I have an approval on custom object project. Whenever the project entry criteria is in discussion, then then we are going to submit the approval for another user. Whenever the status field in a project is in discussion, we are going to submit the record for approval to the some user. Okay, people know how to create the approval process, so I just given the requirement here. You can create the approval process. And what is my request? I need to submit this approval process programmatically. We know, like, when the criteria is met, approval process we can manually submit, or using process builder we can submit this process. But my requirement is submit this process programmatically whenever the criteria is met. Okay, right. So what are the steps you are going to follow? Listen here. The first step, we are going to create a request. We are going to create a request by using a method belongs to a class approval. The method name is process submit request. Process submit request. We are going to create a request. Okay, right? And this is a class. Process submit request is a class. Process submit request is a class, not the method. It's a constructor. A class belongs to namespace approval. Okay, it's not a class now, it's a namespace. Namespace class, we create an instance, and this contains the instance methods. This class contains instance methods. What is the class name? Process submit request. This class contains instance methods. What are the methods? Set object ID, set submitter ID, set comment. Okay, right. So what are you going to pass here to this method? I'm going to pass which record you are going to submit. That ID you have to pass here. That's it. So in your class, what are you going to do? You're going to create an instance and pass the ID of the record. Which record you're going to submit? That ID you have to pass here. Okay. In this example, you can take like the project ID, right? The object ID you're going to pass here, right? What next? Who is going to be the submitter, right? When you create an approval process, you'll choose someone as a submitter. Am I right? Who is going to submit? Whether record owner or any role people are going to submit. Okay, those ID you are going to pass here. Who is going to submit the approval process? Then optionally you will set some comment, because when you submit it, what will happen? The approver will get a notification, right? So there you can put your comment also. If want, you can put this, but mandatory field is going to be set object ID, set submitter ID. Once these two are done, then what next? We're going to submit the request. First, we're going to build the request, and next step, submit the request. How are we going to submit the request? There is a method called process. There is a method called process belongs to the class approval. See here, now this is a method, a class. By seeing this, you'll come to know whether it's a method or a class. In the left side, you are going to have another class called process result. Another class called process result belong to namespace approval. Okay, to that instance, we are capturing the request. Once this is done, what will happen? The record will be automatically, the approval will be automatically submitted. The approval process will automatically submitted. People follow this? How we are submitting the request? Okay, right. We have to listen here, ma. Whatever the request you build, right? So that record we are submitting it. That's it. So what will happen? The record will be submitted, okay, for approval process. Then the approval process with the approval will get notified. That's what we see here. How we are doing this? We get the user ID, to whom we are going to submit. Okay, sorry, who is the submitter? Okay, this is a user going to submit the record, and I build the request. the process submit request. That's what we discussed here. Process submit request, and pass the ID of the record, which record you are going to submit, and who is going to submit, some comment, and process.process, upload.process, pass this instance, and automatically the record will be submitted. That's it. Clear with this? So programmatically I handle this, right? If multiple records meet the criteria, okay, then we submit it. That's it. For every record, we are submitting to the approval for the approval.
Clear, sir.
Without hard coding, the username can be populated dynamically.
See, the submitter depends upon the, if a submitter is a owner ID, right? See, for example, we have taken scenario here as a submitter is a particular user. What about the submitter is a owner ID? Then I'll go with owner of the project. Okay, the project record is going to be the submitter. Then dynamically you can take this, right? You can go with prog dot owner ID. So depends upon what, okay, depends upon who is the submitter you define in the approval process. Who is a submitter, right? That user should be a submitter here. Else the record will fail. Else the submit record, right? So approval process will fail. Am I right? So who is going to be the submitter? So that submitter ID you have to pass here. We have taken an example. A submitter is going to be some particular person. So we will take that ID. If submitter is going to be the owner of the record, then pass the owner ID.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So, right, I'll upload this example for your, reference. So there are some common questions, right? How many records we can process by the trigger? The trigger, no limit. The record will process, bulk volume of record can be processed, because the trigger by default can process more than one record. But we need to keep the limits. No, we need to, we should not process, or best practice we will discuss, right? We should not process a DML and SOQL inside the for loop. Okay, in the next session, we'll discuss about the limits in much more detail. Okay, by Monday, we'll discuss about the DML, the governed, okay, limits, allowed limits to write your Apex code, that we'll discuss later. Okay, so in the trigger, we don't keep a DML or SOQL inside the for loop, because we have a number of SOQL limit, we have a number of DML limits that can be performed in one transaction, right? Another best practice, keep a logic inside a static class, a class in a method, and okay, every trigger logic, so that you can have one trigger for one object. Okay, multiple scenarios you may handle it. That can be differentiated with the help of context variable. Okay, recursive trigger. A recursive trigger, a trigger goes in a loop. How to stop that? By using static variable. Okay, and trigger.new will have a value in the before insert, after update. Trigger.old will have value in all these events, right? So you should know when the trigger.old will have value. The trigger.old is basically for the existing record, right? Old version. So when you will have a value here, only the update and delete event. Am I right? People follow this? Only the update and delete event will have value. A trigger.new map, when this is going to have value? In the after insert, after update, before update. Before update also, what is the new value you are going to update? That can be referred here. Okay, and old map is going to have a value in the update and delete event. It can be before or after, you will have a value here, right? What record you are going to you updated, what record you deleted, that can be found here. Okay, the modified value will go with the new map. Am I right? People follow this? Okay, and circular trigger is again another a trigger which goes in a loop. Basically, same trigger goes in a loop is called recursive trigger. If a trigger calls trigger B, a trigger calls trigger C, and again trigger invoke the trigger A again. So it's a circular trigger. It's again a recursive only. but in other way. Okay, it's not same trigger run and again and again. It goes to other trigger, the control goes to other trigger, then again the first trigger runs. It means circular trigger. So how to stop this? You just go, you have to go with the, it's happening the same transaction, right? So you have to go with the static variable only. We'll follow this, right? So this concept, okay, is basically integration part. When you call external system from the trigger, a trigger is a kind of synchronous process. From the trigger, if you call in external system, what happens? The trigger has to wait till the control, till the external process is done. The trigger has to wait, right? But that cannot be, that not a good practice. Don't let trigger to wait for, don't make a external call from the trigger synchronously. We need to make a asynchronous call. Okay, the next topic is going to be discuss about what is, how to run a apex trigger asynchronously. It means you do some process in a separate thread. I do not want the current process to be hold. Okay, I'd like to run two processes separately. It means when I call external system, I like to run that process in a separate thread. I do not want my trigger to wait for it. Okay, then you have to use an annotation for your method. Okay, like this. I believe this will get more clarity once you discuss about the asynchronous process. Okay, you just, I include this for your reference interview point of view, but I will discuss about this much more detail later. We will follow this.
Is there class of integration tomorrow, sir?
I believe that you got all notified.
Yes, Rajit.
Yes.
Okay, please connect. That's what I got a communication even. So I just want to make sure you all got informed. Okay, right. Please connect tomorrow.
Sir, I did not get the
Vijay?
notification.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we got email as well.
I'll ask them. Okay. See, by 5:30 we are going to connect my time Saturday. Maybe you are right. So 5:30 we're going to connect. I'll ask them to get notified. What I do, if I also get the link and post it in the chat, my second off. The link
Okay.
to get, you can get connected.
Okay.
Follow this, right?
Sir, at what
Okay,
time?
then see you all. Take care.
So, Ranjit,
5:30 p.m. Saturday my
In
time.
India time? Okay.
so Ranjit,
India time. IST. Yes, Ishwar.
so trigger versus workflow. How do we decide when to, which one to use, which one?
Yeah. Good question. 1 minute. Let me. We are here. Okay. Yeah, I'll explain. I can put mute. I'll explain. See that when you take a workflows, right? The workflows always execute in the after insert and update event, right? Your workflows are process or approval process. Every process, declarative process, will fire once the DML is performed after the DML event. The trigger is can perform before and after. That's a big difference, right? And the trigger will, right, that's a big difference. That's it itself is a big difference, right? Before something is performed, before something is committed to the database, I can perform some business logic. So this is going to be your place where you write your business logic. This is going to be a place where you can write your business logic. So you can perform any type of, right, any type of business requirement you can handle in the trigger, which cannot be done in the workflow. The big difference is after the DML, and you can also perform before DML. And the DML events like a delete and undelete are supported in the trigger, which cannot be supported in the workflow. Okay, makes sense to all of you?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, see you all tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.